All right, well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining our Honors and Scholars Buckeye Bridge Series Career Conversations event with Jaspreet Gurm. My name is Caitlin Witzman, and I'm the Program and Event Coordinator for the Global Gateways Office within the Office of International Affairs. With me today, I also have Erin Klein, the Global Education Manager, and Vinod Rani, the Alumni and Academic Services Manager for the India Gateway. During the conversation today, please feel free to submit any questions to the Q&A box, and Erin will moderate the Q&A session following the presentation. Before we get started, I wanted to pass it over to Vinod just to say a few words about the India Gateway.
Hi, good morning. My name is Vinod Rani, and I am the Alumni and Academic Services Manager at the India Gateway office. So in my role, I am majorly responsible for alumni engagement and also students in recruitment and handling incoming students inquiries. So today, in the alumni area that we have, Jaspreet, as we have alumni here. So we are connected with nearly 600 alumni in India, and so we are engaging them in our areas that we work. And the India Gateway office focuses majorly in major business management, healthcare, and engineering and technology. So these are the three areas that we are primarily focusing on, leading to collaboration with industry and academia in India. So we've been here since past 9 years, and we are into the 10th year now, the India Gateway office. And the central purpose is creating and implementing strategic research and academic engagement in India, promoting inbound and outbound students, and leveraging a thriving alumni network spread across India. So as I mentioned about the three domains that we work with, this is healthcare, engineering and technology, and business management. So we are working with the hospitals, organizing conferences in the healthcare healthcare space. We are also working with Tata and Mahindra in the business management area, where we are running executive education programs. And from the engineering and technology, we are associated with IITs and other private institutions and academic in India. So these are the and so students in the student area. We focus in the three category. There is prospective, enrolled, and the students on campus. That is current students. So today we are engaging our current students, and that's where we are having our alumni represent to you with the current students on campus. So I hope this session would be useful for the students at Honors and Scholars. And thanks Aaron and Caitlin for organizing this, and yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinod. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker for today's event, Jaspreet Gurm. Jaspreet has over 18 years of diverse experience in the corporate and social sector. He has successfully essayed leadership roles in various industries and functions. He has worked in automotive, medical devices, management, consulting, and development sectors across functions such as operations, marketing, advisory, etc. He has worked in organizations spanning from Fortune 100 companies to startup accelerators in India and the US. Currently, Jaspreet leads TechnoServe, an international nonprofit organization. India's projects focusing on women's empowerment and agricultural value chain development. He previously served as the country manager at Certus Plus, a startup, associate director at Dasra, a social sector advisory organization, and held leadership roles at companies such as Johnson & Johnson and Ford Motor Company. Jaspreet has earned his MBA from Ross School of Business, University of Michigan, and an MS in mechanical engineering from The Ohio State University. So with that being said, Jaspreet, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thank you for having me here today. I was given the brief to kind of share my journey with the students. So I'm happy to kind of present, and at any point in time, if there's anything that folks would like to ask me, I'm happy to kind of answer that. So let's keep it interactive. Aaron, if you can just allow me to share my screen.
Yes, sorry, I'm going in there right now to give you that access. Let's see. You should be able to access the screen share function.
Yes, I can.
Great.
Great. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yep, we can.
Yes, yep, we can.
Perfect. So with that, let me get started. So my journey essentially has been a tale of two countries, India and the US. So I was born and brought up in India, did my primary schooling, undergraduation in India. Then I went to the US in the August of 2001. I landed at Columbus for my master's at the Ohio State University. And lo and behold, 10 years later, I decided to move back to India, back to Bombay, where I'm originally from. So essentially, I stayed all my life in Bombay, except for a decade when I was in the US. And that actually shaped a lot of my professional journey, which I'll be kind of talking about in more detail. So just giving you guys a quick overview of my educational background. So I did my undergraduation from University of Bombay. And post my graduation, I decided to pursue higher studies. That's when I went to the Ohio State University to do my MS in mechanical engineering. It was at Robinson Lab at that point in time. I know the old building's been kind of raised down and there's a new building in its place, which is much more swanky. And I wish I had an opportunity to study in that building. Then post my graduation, I kind of worked at Ford Motor Company for a few years and decided to pursue further education. And that's when I decided to go to a school that shall not be named, and we shall just call it that school up north. Did my MBA from there. And post that, I decided to move back to India. So when I went to the school up north, I was repeatedly asked, where does my allegiance lie? And I always used to tell them, once a Buckeye, always a Buckeye. So that should settle a debate once and for all. And I think right now we have a good number on them on the football game. So I guess I feel vindicated over there. In terms of my professional career, so I started off my career with Ford Motor Company in the automotive domain as a product development engineer. Then I did my MBA, switched my sector from automotive to medical devices. And along with that, in fact, I moved my geography as well. So I moved back to India when I joined Johnson & Johnson. I was in a marketing role over there as a group product manager. And after that, I moved into the social sector advisory, where I was at Dasra. And I used to kind of lead the capacity building and the fundraising teams over there as an associate director. Post my stint at Dasra, I decided to set up my own consulting firm in India, and along with a couple of my B school alums. And I was the country manager over here. And currently, I am working as a senior practice lead in TechnoServe, which is a nonprofit organization focused on alleviating poverty. Again, I'm going to talk about how the whole journey panned out and what was the motivation and how I was able to move from one industry to other and one role to another role. Moving on. So my initial formative years were shaped in India. As many of you might know, India is one of the most diverse countries in the world with a population of about 1.3 billion people. India is a home to over 100 languages, 700 different tribes, and you name it, we have most of the major religions in the world in India. And India is a very diverse country in the sense like you would find some of the world's largest cities, as well as some of the most remote regions with almost no people in there. I was born and brought up in Bombay. Actually, it's called Mumbai right now and formerly Bombay. It has a population of about 20 million people, and it's the seventh most populous city in the world. It is one of the most cosmopolitan cities of India. And over here, you see a potpourri of a lot of different cultures, a lot of different folks coming together to Bombay to kind of realize their dreams and settling over here in the long run. This makes Bombay a perfect amalgamation of different cultures and religions, which really helped me to shape the global outlook from a very young age. I was exposed to a lot of different cultures and interacted with people from different backgrounds that helped me develop a global perspective as well. Growing up, I was very interested in maths and science, and I was really good at my studies. My dad's a marine engineer, so I always used to look up to him. And growing up, I wanted to be kind of like him. So for me, it was a natural progression to kind of take up engineering as my undergrad major. And I really excelled in my studies over there, which kind of helped me get a university merit rank at Bombay University. After I did my undergraduation, I wanted to pursue my higher education. I ended up applying to 5 different schools in the US, and I got admitted from almost all of them. The cherry on the top was that at Ohio State University, I was awarded a university fellowship as well, which make my choice all the more easier to kind of end up at Ohio State University, which now when I look back at it was one of the best decisions I could have ever made. I was really excited when I got an admit from the Ohio State University and when they informed me of the university fellowship. But coming to the United States was like a bit of a reality in terms of adjusting to a new country and to the new culture. So the first few months were really, really challenging for me, like just getting adjusted in the overall surroundings. And it was a very different educational environment in the US than what I was used to back home in India. But one of the things which really helped me settle down was, again, the people over there. So on the campus, you kind of get to meet all sorts of people from different backgrounds, different nationalities, and many of them are immigrants over there or moved over there for their higher studies. This really helped me kind of gel well with the people on the campus and overall helped me to settle down over there pretty easily. And this provided me with an opportunity to interact with people from different nationalities and further helped me to expand my outlook and develop a much better understanding of the global culture overall. As far as the education goes, as you guys would already know, the Ohio State University has one of the very robust graduate curriculums that any top university could offer over there. I was right from the very first day in awe of the professors that we used to study from. So just to share with you guys an anecdote, like in my undergraduate studies, I used to read the books by Professor Doblin on mechanical engineering measurement systems. And when I landed at Ohio State, I kind of took the class right from Professor Doblin. So that was my fanboy moment. I ran up to him and told him, Professor Doblin, I used to kind of read your books in our undergraduate studies. So again, you can just imagine the caliber of the professors that we have at the Ohio State University. The other thing that really impressed me was the collaboration between the industry and the academia. Like even during our graduate studies, I was able to interact very closely with the engineers at Ford Motor Company on my research topic and work on the same problem that these guys were working on at that point in time. So this gave me a really good understanding of how the industry works, what are some of the challenges that they face, and some of the key cutting edge technologies that they are working on. In my time at Ohio State University, I was very fortunate that I joined up Professor Singh's lab, which was called Acoustics and Dynamics Lab at that point in time. And I had colleagues from across the world. So I had colleagues from US, I had colleagues from China, Taiwan, Korea, Japan. So again, a whole lot of countries over there. And this kind of really helped me to bond well with the folks over there. So all in all, I think the overall ambience, the environment, and the curriculum really helped me settle down over there and make the best out of my time at Ohio State University. Coming back to the thesis, so when I was working on my research program, I used to kind of frequently interact with the engineers at Ford Motor Company to understand the key issues and the challenges that they were working on. And at that point in time, one of the key topics that they were working on is which is called as torsional vibration analysis. So essentially, the engineers had the tools or the softwares which enabled them to analyze any car system, but it used to take a lot of time. Sometimes it used to run into a couple of days, the analysis that they were working on. They wanted something, a very quick and easy way where they would be able to simulate the entire car system and make sense of what's happening over there. And that was the research topic that I worked on. And this was just the graphical interface to show you like the kind of system that we built for Ford Motor Company at that point in time. And this was something that the company really admired and was very useful to them to run a quick analysis to see what are the problem areas, what are some of the things that they got to be working on. And this impressed them so much so that when I graduated from Ohio State University, they ended up offering me a full-time opportunity at Ford Motor Company. So for me, this was really an aha thing, because being an international student, going through some of the hassles with regard to the visa and some of the
I think Jaspreet's audio had some difficulties. He should be coming back. Are you still there, Jaspreet? I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. I think I lost the connection. I don't know at what point did I went off.
We caught the last 10, 20 seconds cut off, but we can't see your screen. It disappeared.
Okay.
Yep.
How about
Okay.
now?
Perfect. Yep. We're good. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So at Ford, again, the theme continued in terms of having the colleagues from across the world. Like I just listed a few countries which I could remember: USA, Canada, UK, Germany, Iran, Russia, Australia. So I think there are more than 10 countries out there. And in fact, there could be more, which I am just kind of not remembering right now. The work at Ford Motor Company allowed me to build on the foundation that I had at Ohio State University, and allowed me to excel at Ford Motor Company. The school did a really good job of building up my technical expertise, giving me the right set of tools to kind of work on real life problems. During my time at the Ford Motor Company, I was able to publish 2 papers in the Society of Automotive Engineers. And on these papers, in fact, I collaborated with my advisor at Ohio State University. So even when I went to the Ford Motor Company, I continue to be in touch with my advisor. And this just goes on to show the strong linkages the school has with the industry. At Ford, I initially started off as a product development engineer, but then there came an opportunity where Ford was working on a micro-hybrid technologies project. So this was a really interesting project at that point in time, where we were trying to introduce a micro-hybrid technology in automatic vehicles. So the micro hybrid technology is nothing but essentially like if you are driving your car, you come to a stop sign, press your foot on the brake, the engine automatically shuts off. And as soon as you lift your foot off the brake, the engine restarts. So this was something that had been piloted in the manual vehicles at that point in time, but Ford had not introduced it into the automatic vehicles because there were certain challenges, technical issues that needed to be overcome. And when my manager asked me, Jaspreet, would you be interested in working on something like this? I kind of definitely jumped onto the opportunity. And that had been a consistent theme across my career. Like whenever an opportunity presented and I found it really challenging and exciting, I never thought twice about it and just grabbed it with both the hands. Now, the very first challenge I ran into with taking something on like this is, how do I even set targets for something which hasn't been introduced into the market yet? And this is where like I kind of used a bit of a framework to kind of see what the future might hold. Now, we were planning on introducing this technology 3 years down the line. That was the development time that we would have taken to develop this thing. And during that time, the hybrids were out there in the market, and the people's perception would have been the vehicle got to be almost performed seamlessly like a full hybrid vehicle. So that gave me the insight, like perhaps I should be benchmarking the full hybrids rather than trying to downplay the hybrid piece of it and look at a scaled down version of it. So I went about setting very aggressive targets in terms of what we should be looking at. Again, setting the aggressive targets is all fine and dandy, but how do you go about achieving those targets in reality? And given the cross-functional nature of the teams that we had at Ford Motor Company, a lot of people were, let me tell you that they were not really happy with me setting such aggressive targets. They felt that this will be impossible to achieve, but I had the support of the management team. And in the end, we were able to do a really good job of delivering this technology project. And I was able to kind of wrap up the program in about 2 years time period. And this was a project that actually ended up winning a technical achievement award from the technical fellow at Ford Motor Company. Post this, there came an opportunity to kind of lead the launch of a new car into the US market. So this was a B platform car called Ford Fiesta that we were thinking of launching in the US market at that point in time. So again, I was given an opportunity to lead the launch of the vehicle into the US market. And although I did not have any prior experience with that, I still kind of put my hand up and said, yeah, I'll do that. This gave me an opportunity to work with a lot of cross-functional teams at that point in time. So Ford at that point in time was moving towards a one Ford platform where the development work was happening across different countries. So for example, I was constantly on a daily basis interacting with the teams in the UK, Germany, Australia, Mexico, and US, of course, for the development of the vehicle. And this really kind of helped me build on my stakeholder management skills. And this was what kind of at the forefront during that time period, more than my technical skills. And this made me realize the technical skills are really good for you to kind of get your career started. But as you kind of progress in your career, one of the critical skills that you need to master is how do you interact with people? How do you work with folks across different countries and still make significant progress over there? That was a really great learning for me at that point in time. The other thing I realized is the way you make some of the business decisions. Now, as an engineer, I always wanted to get the best product out there in the market, but it comes with certain trade-offs with regards to how much cost allocation could be done towards that particular product. And this particular experience helped me get an exposure to how the business teams think, what are some of the considerations that go behind it, and more importantly, how to always have a customer focus. Because one of the things that always used to come is, okay, you can make the changes that you want into the product, but does the customer really need this? Does the customer care about this? And that was a phrase which I often heard during the development work. And that made me realize perhaps I need a more structured education in some of the business aspects of the things. And that is when I decided to kind of go to the B school and further build on the technical skills that I have at Ford. And at that point in time, Ross School of Business was right in my own backyard. I applied over there, got an admit, and decided to pursue my MBA at Ross. Again, a great school with a lot of exposure and a lot of learnings over there. During that time, India was making rapid strides. So again, I recently found on the web the chart laying out India's transformation, and it talks about 3 different phases where since independence till in 1947 till the year 2006, how we were kind of trying to get ourselves out of poverty, and then the economic liberation phase between 2007 and 18, and how after 19, it's kind of predicting a very steep rise, but I think COVID played a bit of spoil sport in some of those projections, so some of that may not hold true anymore. But when I did my MBA, this was around year 2010 and 2011, and you can see like India was making rapid strides at that point in time. And that really got me thinking, is this the right time for me to move back to India? Now, in most of the immigrant community in the US, like whenever I used to talk to them, they always used to have this N+1 syndrome, which is all of them will tell you that they want to move back to their home country. But when you ask them, when do you want to move back? The response always used to be, oh, next year. And if you ask them the next year, oh, when do you want to move back? Oh, I'll move back the next year. So this cycle continues, and most of the people never end up moving back, and they end up kind of settling down in the US. So this is called N+1 syndrome. And if you do Google this term, you will get lots of material around it. For me, I was really grappling with the question of where do I want to live? I had a really great career in the US. I got my education in the US. I started off my professional journey. I had my green card, and I was kind of moving towards a very cushy life in the US. So for me, it became very challenging to answer that question. My family was in India. On one hand, I wanted to be closer to the family, but on the other hand, my professional career, I wanted to stay in the US. So I struggled with this for a few months. And then one fine day, I thought, okay, let me just flip the question. Rather than asking myself, where do I want to live? I should try and answer, where do I want to die? And when I did that, the answer became very clear to me. I wanted to be close to my family, close to my loved ones when I breathe my last, and that kind of helped me make the decision. I know this is not the most exciting way or the most interesting question that you want to answer, but at least it helped me get the clarity of what steps for me to take next. And different people have different thought processes, and I have a few friends who had made the transition back to India. They had their own Excel analysis that they went through. So different people use different techniques, and this worked for me. So I have no qualms about that. So after my B school, I started looking out for opportunities back in India. So when the companies used to come on campus, I especially look for the organizations which were recruiting for India location. And one of those organizations was Johnson & Johnson. So through Johnson & Johnson, I interviewed with them on campus. I had a really good conversation, and I ended up getting an offer from them. So at that point in time, Johnson & Johnson used to have a program which they call IRDP, International Rotation Development Program. where they used to hire folks from the international B schools and help them move back to their home countries. So this marked a shift for me from the automotive to the medical devices sector. During the interviews, some of the critical things that I did focus on was, rather than talk to them in terms of my mechanical engineering or the technical things I did at Ford Motor Company, I focused more on the transferable skills. I talked about how I have an analytical approach to problem solving. So for example, I used to work in the NVH domain. NVH stands for noise, vibration, and harshness. So within the car, there could be different kind of NVH issues that you can come across. But when you try to put a framework to that, you can simply break it down into a framework where there is a source of the vibration, there is a path through which the vibration gets transmitted, and then there is a receiver. Source, most of the time, invariably used to be the engine. And there is very little thing that you can do with the engine, because if you try to change the calibration, if you try to mess around with some of the timings and everything, the whole system used to go haywire and you end up getting into more problems than what you are trying to solve over there. So source is something that you cannot mess around with too much. Receiver is your driver. Unless until you have the music blast on full volume, there is nothing much you can do for the driver. So the only option that leaves to you is the path. How can you make changes to the path in which the vibration gets transmitted? So this was one of the frameworks that really helped me excel at Ford Motor Company. And I was able to demonstrate how I am able to leverage my analytical thinking into problem solving. And that really worked for me to make the transition from the automotive to the medical devices. At Johnson & Johnson, I used to manage a suture portfolio. So suture is essentially your needle and the thread, as depicted in the picture over here, that you use to close a wound after a surgery. And in fact, when I moved back with Johnson & Johnson, one of the things my mom used to tell me is, son, if you really wanted to sell needle and thread, why did you have to go halfway across the world, study so much, and spend a decade away from home? So, well, so much for getting a job at Johnson & Johnson. So for me, the move from automotive to medical devices wasn't that difficult as compared to the move from US to India. I probably underestimated the cultural fit part of my move from US to India. And I think at some level, I was probably overconfident, assuming that, hey, listen, I grew up in India. I know the people over there really well. I understand the culture. How difficult would it be for me to kind of go back into the community where I came from? Well, that was a big mistake on my part, because I started off my professional career in Ford Motor Company, and that's how I kind of learned some of the professional etiquette and also the way things work in an organization. But every culture, every country, every organization has its own culture. And that's something that became a lot more apparent to me when I moved back to India. In the initial few months were really challenging for me, so much so that there were occasions I contemplated moving back to the US. At that point in time, I had some really great mentors. And this is where I would emphasize the importance of having some really strong mentors in your life, because if it weren't for them, I might have ended up packing my bags and being back in the US within the first 6 months of I came to India. So they kind of counsel me and say that, hey, listen, what you are going through isn't very uncommon. Give it some time. Normally it takes somewhere about a year to 18 months. And once you are through that period, if you still feel like moving back to the US at that point in time, by all means, but don't make a decision in haste and give it some time and thought. And that is when things slowly started improving after a while. And finally, I was able to make that adjustment. But again, if everything was going fine, there wouldn't be any excitement in the life. at the end of my 18 months period, I realized I wasn't really enjoying the job at Johnson and Johnson. During my B school, I did a couple of projects. When I came back to India, I did a research uh, in the looking at how the rural kids can afford education in the schooling system. And that was the kind of work that really excited me. And at Ross, we used to have Professor C.K. Prahlad, who is the author of the book Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid. And he always used to kind of encourage us to kind of think, what is it that you want to be doing with your life? And that to me was a quintessential question. Do I want to work for a multinational company, keep adding to the bottom line, and just be one of many who is there, or is there something more meaningful I can do with my life? And that is when I kind of decided to take a break and figure things out of what is it that I want to be doing next. It is at that point in time that one of my close friends, he was working at a social sector organization called Dasra. He said that, hey, listen, while you are taking a break, while you are kind of figuring out what your next steps are going to be, why don't you kind of just come and volunteer with us? And I thought, okay, by the time I figure things out, let me just kind of keep myself busy and meaningfully employed, in a manner of speaking, to kind of not just sit at home. I started volunteering at an organization called Dasra. So at that point in time, that organization was running a social impact leadership program. So as a part of that program, they used to bring together a cohort of non-profit organizations and help them kind of develop the skills through which they can make a meaningful impact and help scale their organization. So given the background that I had of a B school education, of having worked at Johnson and Johnson in a marketing role, I started working with them, looking at their business plans, looking at their scale-up plans, and kind of started asking them a lot of questions. Why is it that they are thinking about in this way? Why not some other way? And got into those conversations. The organizations that I was working with, they really liked the kind of inputs I was providing to them. They kind of repeatedly told me, hey, Jaspreet, listen, no one ever has kind of asked these questions of us. What you are asking is kind of really helping us kind of draft really strong plans and everything. And mind you, I had no prior exposure in the social space. Whatever I was doing was just based on some of the skills which I had picked at Ford Motor Company, at my B school, and at Johnson and Johnson. So it was just leveraging on those skills that I was able to add value to these non-profits. So they were in that program for a period of about 6 months. And at the end of the 6-month period, they actually went up to the founder of the organization and told them, hey, listen, we really benefited from the inputs that we got from Jaspreet, and we really thank the organization for that. That is when the founder of the organization reached out to me. He said, hey, listen, you are in the company almost every given day. You seem to be enjoying the work that you are doing, and the organizations are happy to work with you. Would you consider a full-time opportunity at Dasra? And thus started my journey into the social sector. So it wasn't something which was actually planned or thought through. It kind of just happened organically, but I am glad it happened at that point in time. So when I joined Dasra, I started working very closely with the nonprofit organizations on building their capacity. Now, one of the things about the nonprofit sector, at least in India, was most of these nonprofit organizations are founded by the people or the leaders who are really passionate about a given cause or about a given issue that they are trying to solve. And they have their hearts in the right place, but they do not necessarily have the right management skills to kind of lead an organization or scale up an organization. They are able to do a really good job of mobilizing the community, mobilizing the people around the cause or the issue, But running an organization and scaling it up requires a totally different skill set. And that is what I was able to bring it to the table. I kind of forced them to start thinking in a structured manner and leverage the strategic planning skills, think in terms of, okay, what are the key three challenges that they are facing at that point in time with regards to scaling up the organization? What would help them to get to the next stage? Invariably, what used to happen is whenever you used to ask them, oh, what is it that you need the support with? The answer used to be, oh, only if I had enough money. And then I used to ask them, what would you do if you had $1 million today? Oh, I would reach out to these many people. How would you reach out to that many people? Oh, I would just hire a bunch of folks. Does hiring a bunch of folks solve the issue for you? No. Then what is it that solves the issue for you? So you get into those kind of conversations. And being an outsider, it gave me the liberty to ask some really stupid questions to the folks over there and kind of get deep down into what the actual challenge that they are trying to solve. Again, I'm just kind of laying it out matter of factly over here, but just getting them open to this kind of conversation used to be a process in itself, because sometimes they would be like, oh, you know what, I have spent my entire life in the sector and you aren't even from this sector and you are telling me how to run my organization. So you have to kind of have those people management, stakeholder management skills in order to be able to effectively do your job. And that is something that my exposure at Ford Motor Company really gave me when I was looking at launching a new car model into the US market. Again, when I was kind of having those conversations, I was very, very careful of knowing what my strengths are and what are the areas where I should kind of push the leader in a bit more and where to back off. For example, I never got involved in the programmatic elements because I had no knowledge of the community. I had no knowledge of the issue. So without that, I would not be able to make any programmatic suggestions to the leaders of the organizations. That is an area that they know really well. The areas which I know well are the management, the systems, the processes, the structures around it. And that's the area where I kind of always added the value to the organization. Now, the two key skills, key ingredients missing in the social sector in India are the human capital, that is the really talented folks, and as most of the organizations will tell you, the fundraising. Again, funding is a challenge, but provided you know what are you going to do with the funding. So I realized that I am able to build out those strategic plans with these leaders. I'm able to help them think through some of the issues. But when it came to the implementation, they lacked the required funding to implement some of those programs. And that is the conversation I was having with the leader in the organization, my founder. And then he asked me, would you be interested in solving that piece of the puzzle? And that is when I decided to move from the capacity building into the fundraising role. So this was the role where I was helping the organization raise money from the donors. The donors could be the philanthropists, it could be the foundations, it could be the corporates as a part of their corporate social responsibility. Now, when I joined the fundraising team at Dasra, one of the first things I noticed is there wasn't any structure to the team. Now, coming from a Fortune 100 company like a Ford Motor Company, the whole concept of structure, systems, and processes is ingrained into me. And for me to kind of see something operating without structure is very disconcerting, and I cannot operate in that environment. So one of the very first things I did was kind of put structure to the team and say, okay, this is how we are going to work. I had a team of 11 people before, where everyone was kind of trying to do everything. Then I said, okay, let's focus on the individual strengths and figure out how can we better structure it. We realized that there were three main segments of the donors that we were raising funds from. Essentially, high net worth individuals, the corporates, and the foundation. So I structured the team across those three verticals. Again, there are different ways I could have sliced and diced the whole team, but I found that it was that particular structure that worked really well for me. And then having done that, I kind of try to figure out, okay, what are the kind of organizations that we are raising the funds for? For example, there were the organizations that we were working in the education sector. There were organizations in the health sector. There were organizations in the livelihood space. There are organizations in the human rights space. Now, certain sector appeal to certain kind of donors. For example, for the corporates, education and livelihoods is a key topic of interest because that is something that aligns well with them. Corporates would never get into the domains of human rights because it kind of jeopardizes their goodwill with the government and they want to stay away from that. But human rights is something that really appeals to a lot of high net worth individuals and the foundation. So again, leveraging the analytical thinking, the structured process to kind of figure out what the next steps are going to be. And that really helped me kind of make the team a lot more efficient in the work that they were doing. Again, one of the key things that you are taught in any marketing class is the cost of acquiring a new customer is a lot more than retaining an existing customer. And similar principles I applied over here, saying that let's focus on the retention of the existing donors rather than chasing the new donors all the time. And one of the key things is if you cannot measure anything, you cannot improve it. So I really focused on developing a monitoring and information system which can provide insights into the efforts that we are making and what are the results. Anything where we found ourselves spending a lot of time and effort on but not getting good results out of it, that initiative got shelved 3 to 4 months down the line because we were always short on people. So anything which wasn't working, we were nimble enough to kind of make quick adjustments and course correct at that point in time. After I completed almost 3.5 years at Dasra, I got into a conversation with a couple of my B school alums, and I was talking to them about some of the things that I have learned, some of the challenges in the social space. And even those guys were also kind of seeing something similar in the US, and they were contemplating setting up a consulting firm. And that is when we kind of joined forces and set up an organization called Certus Plus, both in the US and in India. So Certus Plus is a Latin name. It stands for positive deviation. So we wanted to kind of do a positive deviation in the work that we were doing and decided to set it up into a consulting firm focused on both private as well as social sector consulting. So this kind of gave me an opportunity to leverage the entire set of skills that I have developed at that point in time and provide advisory services to both for-profit and not-for-profit organizations. Setting this organization up also helped me get the startup experience of building something from the startup. Within the very first year of operations, I was able to build a team of 40 plus individuals that was spread across 3 different cities in India. Again, the way we were able to do that is by always being open to new opportunities. One of the very first clients that we had was a US client, which was very big on mindfulness. So the way they used to work is they used to kind of have these mindfulness tracks that they used to record on iPods and ship it physically to the schools, where teacher would play those tracks in front of the children. The children would listen to those tracks, and basically when they did a randomized control trials, they figured that out. The program had a very positive impact on the students, like the cases of absenteeism went down, the bullying behavior reduced, the grades went up, even the stress level of the teachers went down. So this was a very effective program, but highly inefficient because it required to kind of physically ship the iPods And because of that, the program wasn't scalable at all. So when we were advising this particular client, we kind of advised them, why don't you set up a digital platform, put all of your tracks onto the platform, and provide a login and ID to the school so that they can simply play the track from the platform, and the incremental cost of scaling up would be very, very minimal. The client really liked this input, and they asked us to kind of help find a firm which can set up the digital platform for them. When we started looking out for the digital firms, they were giving us the quotes upwards of $1 million. And we figured that, well, for that amount of money, we can set up our own team in India, at the same time be profitable. And that is how we were able to kind of build a team of 40 plus individuals within the very first year of operation. So again, being open to the opportunities that come your way and grabbing them, the theme that has been that has come across at different points in my career. And this also allowed us to build the expertise in the digital transformation domain. So this was a great experience, and we were doing some really, really great work both in India and the US. But as they say, like any good thing must come to an end. After 3.5 years of having run this thing, again, there was a certain different thought process that the partners in the US had, and the way I wanted to kind of scale up the firm in India. So at that point in time, we decided, okay, let's preserve our friendship and let the firm kind of die down its own natural death. So I ended up kind of shutting the firm down in India at that point in time. Now, throughout my experience, one of the things I realized is when I was working at Dasra or even at Circus Plus, I was into an advisory or a consulting mode. Now, one of the things that often used to come up is when I used to advise my clients, they used to come back to me and tell me, Jaspreet, whatever you are saying makes a lot of sense, but implementing is altogether a different ball game. The things that look good theoretically may not actually hold in practice, and that is where a lot of effort is required. So after I kind of shut down my own firm, I thought, okay, let me kind of see if I can get some implementation experience. And that is when I decided to join TechnoServe. So TechnoServe is a international nonprofit organization headquartered in the US, and they are present in almost 30 countries around the world. And they are one of the best on-ground implementation nonprofits that you can find across the world. It was set up by a US businessman, Ed Bullard, when he was traveling to Ghana with his family in the year 1968. He saw people in abject poverty over there. And one of the things he realized that is the poverty is not because of some innate human characteristics, but because of the lack of knowledge, tools, and the skills. And he made it his mission in life to equip people with these 3 key ingredients, and that led to the formation of TechnoServe. So he believed in the power of business to solve poverty. And to me, that was actually something I was trying to do, coming from a business background, moving into the development space, and this resonated a lot closely with me. And when the opportunity came, I said, okay, this is something that I really want to be doing. So I ended up joining TechnoServe in the year 2019, and I'm working over there as a senior practice leader. In my current role, I'm leading a portfolio of projects working in the agriculture sector. Now, agriculture is a sector which I have never worked in my life, and I don't know one crop from the another, one value chain from the another. But here I am leading a team of seasoned professionals in the agriculture space. Again, the way I am able to kind of leverage my skills in this space is one of the key things that we are trying to do in the agriculture sector is increase the income of the farmers. Now, if you think about it, there are only 2 ways you can increase the income. Either you increase the revenue or you reduce the cost of farming. Now, if you have to improve the revenue, again, there are just two key levers. Either you produce more or you get a better price for your produce. Similarly, if you have to reduce the cost, you have to look at what are the cost elements and what are the fixed costs or the variable costs, and which of these levers can I implement. So it's a simple framework again, and anything that you do has to kind of fall under one of the levers. So getting this kind of a structure in place kind of really gave me the tools I needed to implement effective programs, work with the people on the ground, and excel at what I do. It's almost been 2 years since I'm into the role, and touch wood, hopefully should continue going forward. If you ask me today, Jaspreet, what next after it, hey, I never knew before joining TechnoServe I would end up over here. So I'm always open to new opportunities. One of my key mantras in life has been, life is really straightforward. If you ask me 20 years back when I landed in the US at Ohio State University, would something in the social sector, in the agriculture domain, is that something I would see myself doing? I would say, heck no. I ended up over there doing for my further studies. I considered myself to be a really good mechanical engineer. And that is what I thought I would be kind of doing throughout my life. But life has its own twists and turns. And normally people have this very straightforward view of success in a linear progression. But success rarely looks like that. You never know how the things pan out in the long run. And I'll close this with one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs, like regarding connecting the dots. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only do it when you kind of look backwards and try to put things in perspective. And one of the stronger beliefs that you should always have is somehow the dots will connect in the future. And this is what Steve talks about, like you've got to have trust in something, either your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever that could be. And that's one of the approaches that has actually worked for me, having transitioned to different geographies, different sectors, different roles, and here I am. So with that, I'll kind of like to take a stop and see in case if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Well, thank you so much, Jaspreet. Really, this was a phenomenal hour of hearing about your experience. And just again, for students, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those into the Q&A. We already have a few that are queued up. First off, Jaspreet, I appreciate that you said once a Buckeye, always a Buckeye. They have a great institution, but glad to hear that your loyalties are still with us here in Columbus. But sort of with that, I think a lot of engineers and engineering students are looking to the future of sort of that what's next, and whether that be going into the industry, maybe it's doing a master's in engineering, maybe it's doing an MBA. What sort of advice would you tell our students that are listening if they're sort of in this conundrum of, do I do more of a technical master's or do I go the MBA route next? What sort of advice would you tell our students?
So one of the key things I always kind of talked about is like, what is it that you want to be doing? Like, where do you see yourself a couple of years down the line? And always play to your strength in that sense. So even when I kind of made transition from one industry to another or one sector to another, I always played it to my strength. And you should not just jump ship because something isn't working out for you. Like one of the things one of my mentors told me is when I was kind of getting really frustrated at my job at Johnson & Johnson, Jaspreet, are you running towards something or are you running away from something? And having that perspective has really helped me in the life. Like whenever I'm kind of thinking of, okay, what next? I'm always thinking about, is there something that is calling to me or that I'm finding a lot more attractive to what I currently have? Or is it that I'm currently hating my job and I just want to get away from this thing? It could be a bad boss or it could be a bad coworker. Well, you know what? You never know what kind of a boss or what kind of a coworker you are going to get in the future. So for me, the key thing is try to figure out what is it that is calling you, what is it that you are really finding more interesting, and where your strengths lie. If you play to your strengths, chances are you wouldn't go wrong with that. So having that clarity is a must, and you should invest some time and effort in figuring that out for yourself. And I think Ohio State has a great career team over there, so they can help you figure some of those things out and do leverage them.
Wonderful. No, I think that's great. Leveraging student strengths and figuring out sort of what they want next in terms of their career. And, referencing some of the resources that we have here at Ohio State, one question that we have here is, what advice do you have for students that are sitting, whether they're right now listening live or, they're listening to this recording, they want to have an international career. They want to work for a multinational company like a Ford, like a Johnson & Johnson. What sort of things can they be doing right now on campus to be getting those experiences so that when they apply for these jobs, they apply for these internships, their resumes are at the top? What sort of things can they be doing right now on campus?
So one of the things that I would advise is, again, highlighting the diversity of your experience overall. And again, you might be working with a lot of different colleagues, different interesting problems. Having some of those exposures come out into your resume is always going to be great. Now, many a times we believe that we might be able to succeed based on the strength of your technical skills, but I'm a living proof that technical skills can only get you so far. Beyond that, you need to have your people management skill, your stakeholder management skills. So how are you able to navigate some of that? How are you working within your own community over there to make a difference? I think these are some of the aspects that some of the organizations really value. And don't be afraid to put your hands up for something that is really challenging. Even if you don't know how to do that, go for it. I'm pretty damn sure if you are smart enough to get into Ohio State, you would be smart enough to figure out how to get the things done. So don't be afraid to kind of accept a challenging opportunity. And once you accept that, give it all your all, and you would succeed in that. And I think organizations really like that kind of an attitude and that kind of a drive. And if you are able to showcase some of that to the potential employers, I think they would have a lot more confidence in you, and they would be much more willing to put you in charge of some of those opportunities which they feel are challenging, and maybe some of the other folks may not be up for it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. And again, I know we're right at the hour here and want to be respectful of your time. And thank you again so much for giving us your Friday evening to our students and to Ohio State. We certainly appreciate that. I'll just sort of end it as, do you have anything that you'd like to leave with our students? I know you gave that great Steve Jobs quote at the end there, but any final advice or final things that you'd like to leave with our students here today?
Sure. So again, guys, one of the things I would tell you is, like, you don't have to have everything figured out right up front. Again, like I shared with you, if somebody would have asked me 20 years ago, is this the role or the position I would have seen myself 20 years ago? Heck no. But again, life has its own ways of where the things pan out. So don't stress yourself in kind of saying, oh, this is where I want to be in 20 years. It's always good to have that long-term vision, but you've got to be flexible enough to make changes, adapt yourself, and not put undue pressure on stress on yourself. There are some folks who exactly know what they are going to be doing and 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, or maybe 20 years down the line. But then there could be folks like me who just figure things out along the go. So in case if you have things figured out, hey, great, kudos to you. But in case if you haven't, guys, take heart. Things always turn out for the best, and just have faith in something or the other. Like, again, as in the quote, it talked about your gut, your destiny, your karma, whatever works for you. And I'm pretty sure things will work out in the long run. So don't stress yourself with that.
Wonderful advice. Wonderful advice. Well, thank you again, Jaspreet, on behalf of Global Gateways, Education Abroad, the College of Engineering. We greatly appreciate your time. this evening. Thank you, students, all of you that joined us for this great conversation with Jaspreet. But we will end it here. Thank you again, and we hope you have a wonderful day.